Heyo.
Oh, and we are live. Hello, Luke. How
What's
goes
happening,
your
man?
week?
Going good, dude.
Yeah, big week for me. I was in South Carolina. I was at the Kiowa, the Sanctuary Resort in Kiowa Island in South Carolina. Have you ever heard of that place?
No.
Yeah, me neither up until I went there, but apparently it's quite the golf. It's a PGA golf course, and so a lot of golfers went there, had a good time, but it was a beautiful resort. Had a really good time. What'd you do this week?
This week was some more just catching up from 4th of July, but pushing, had tons of stuff carrying over and fun summer activities around Texas, but no major travels or anything exciting like that on my end.
Man, I have so much stuff to catch up on. Whenever you go out to this, I wasn't present, and even though it's a resort, I was there on work.
Right.
My work consisted of getting to know and building relationships with, uh, top real estate company owners and such. But my my workload, my email box is just absolutely full. I didn't fly in until back home until yesterday. And then I'm flying again out next week. So I'll be coming for, next week when we do this. I'm going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Hey, going
Yeah,
back.
gonna go. Yeah, gonna go visit my dad, and while we do that, I'm gonna see about doing some work.
Cool.
So, all right. So we talked about what we wanted to do. So our major focus, as people have watched this, is we focus on the evolution of artificial intelligence, and we really want to help those who watch. Now, typically, people who watch our stuff are coming from the mortgage industry, from the real estate industry, just say the real estate industry overall. And we really want to share with them how artificial intelligence can be used as a tool in order to generate leads. Now, when we say generate leads, that could also be nurturing them and and converting them. But I mean, you got to generate a lead first before you can actually nurture it. So that's really kind of the focus on this. And you are my go-to guy when it comes to artificial intelligence. So I think the good thing that we could start off on just talking about what are you seeing on what we've been talking about with artificial intelligence. It seems like things are just evolving exponentially practically overnight. And what are you seeing the next what are you doing? What are you seeing that the next things that with artificial intelligence?
Yeah. So, this is definitely something where it's like, um, I'm coming from a place right now that is like truly like, do not. This is a non-negotiable. Like, don't bury your head in the sand. Don't completely ignore it. Like, you need to be touching it, playing it, like just at the bare minimum, trying things out on a regular basis. And that's my personal opinion. So there's I feel like there's really two sets of camps of people when they're looking at things. This like pie in the sky, like I want AI to do everything for me, A to Z. I press a button and it just rains money on me and I don't have to do anything. And then there's like the practical folks that are like, hey, I see this tool, like I want to, how do I practically leverage this to my best ability?
Yeah.
So for me, like a lot of times it's really trying to help weed through, you know, use cases that the individual lenders and realtors can put into practice today versus like what might be coming. Some of the cool stuff that's like coming down the pipeline, I expect to see more of it is like some of that pie in the sky, like applied learning and autonomy and like things where you can say, like, speak like, I want blank, and it starts to put that into place for you. Right now, that's not really attainable to your average individual, or business owner. There's certain, Fortune 500 companies that have, processes in place that are significantly, moving towards that. But that still, for the most part, is going to require some level of like coding and things like that. Doable, which is cool, but not necessarily accessible for your average everyday person.
So, one of the things that I just heard you say is that, don't bury your head in the sand here. And I think that
Yeah.
relates, and we've talked about this before, is that you and I, we're in that generation where the internet really was getting a foothold. We got to witness that whole thing. And there were a lot of people at the time that were just calling the internet a fad. I think we can agree. I think you and I at least agree that the internet's no longer considered a fad. And that artificial intelligence is that next evolution to it. But here's the thing, and kind of going into what you had just said, is there are people out there who want it to be their be all end all. They want to pay, whatever, $20 a month and have this system that just does everything for them just by, you don't even need to press a button. We're like on the enterprise. You're like, hey,
Right.
computer, launch this thing and generate me millions of leads.
Right.
And what I'm finding is I'm getting emails from people. We're putting on. I'm organizing this event that's coming up in October, and we're having panelists and we're having speakers, and we have to review their content and their subject matter. And here's what I'm finding: I can tell when somebody's using AI. I can tell the form. I can tell when all they're doing is using AI, Chat GPT, and then they're just
Hmm.
copying it and pasting it. There is a there is a very structure to it as far as the way that they're doing, the way that it's formatted. Can you do? I mean, I'm sure that you're picking up on it as well, right? That you can
Yeah.
tell when somebody's
If
using
you can do it,
artificial
imagine what
intelligence.
like Google.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for
my big
for
thing
sure.
is
You know.
you've really got to use it as a tool. You can't you can't just have it replace. You can't just go ask Google Bard
Hmm.
or Chat GPT or Bing and have it write it for you. I think that's a good first draft, and that by itself saves me a ton of time. It's the creative. It is,
Yeah.
hey, this is what I'm looking to do. These are the concepts I want to do. Give me some ideas, and it punches it out. And I'm like, boom, there you go. So when it comes to writing
Yeah.
copy for perhaps a property listing, writing uh, a syllabus, or writing an outline of a presentation, or how to respond to something like an email or whatnot, I think that's what it should be used for. But to your point, now's not the time to just have it replace you, because the people why people want to work with them is because they know you, like you, trust you. Let's keep the AI tools at a minimum here. Use it as a tool. So with that,
Yeah, it's definitely go for it.
no, with that, I think the big way of doing things, or the one way that I think this should be used to the nth degree, is creating sales copy. And that could be writing an email sequence. That could be writing a captivating headline that
Hmm.
will generate leads. That could be helping you write a free report, how to sell your X home for top dollar in a high inflationary environment. I mean, that would capture the attention to somebody who's looking to sell. How to grow your, there are
Hmm.
certain things that can help you do. But ultimately, gosh, if we go back to the step before that, and we've talked about this, most people don't even know how to create a video and post it on any social media platform, let alone create a landing page to generate leads. So there are some things that yes, AI is going to help you do, but you got to figure out how to set up the infrastructure to use the tool. It's like you're getting a hammer with no nails. You can do with a hammer with no nails, or even better, you're getting a hammer to build a house
Yeah,
and you don't have any
that's funny. I
nails,
was
but you don't have anything else
right.
either.
I was uh, I was using the analogy yesterday. I had a presentation for a group of folks, but it was, I was kind of saying like, ChatGPT AI is the brain. You need a body to make it work. Like you can't, you need distribution, you need, so all of this information, all of these ideas is, it's only worth the computer screen that it's sitting on if it's not getting out to the end user, if we're not putting it out in the wild. So to your point on social media stuff, like, or onto sales and sales copy, it's really effective at that, and I think that that's like one of the best use cases for realtors and lenders that they can apply to their day-to-day business. Content creation, emails, like email newsletters, blogs, websites, even sales and support. It's very, very applicable and attainable, and systems and processes are available and accessible to everybody right now for that. The next phase of that is like, hey, go out and get my stuff for me and do everything. But like you said, there's that bridge from, okay, it's created, it still needs to go somewhere, you still need to write that email, send that email out, there's still some moving parts in there that either is done by the individual or an assistant. We're finding right now, you know plugging in AI trained virtual assistants is one of the most leverage points that you can get for really, really applying this to your day-to-day business, because there's still some human element that is needed in most all processes. The cool thing too is you can help train your, like, a virtual assistant. Like you said, you can tell when something's written by ChatGPT or OpenAI. But like, so putting in that human element, you can even train, somebody else, a virtual assistant to kind of help, supplement information. Um, but yeah, one of the best use cases by far is, is down that pipe there.
Yeah. One of the things that I do with everything is I use Grammarly. I think I've said that to you before and on our videos in the past. Is everything I do is I put into Grammarly because number one, that helps you. It is a very advanced spell check, but it also checks sentences. It checks the way that things are created. It's really allowing you to edit. It's like having an editor on over your shoulder. What's interesting is that they also have AI built into it, so you can actually have AI Chat GPT analyze everything and provide suggestions. You can also on Canva now has a beta tool that you can say what kind of image you're looking for, and it'll create it for you. It's like I want a picture of Mario eating a pizza, and it'll go through and create these different versions. And I'm showing that a lot of different things are popping up. But to your point, you need to have that human element. You need to have that person that's like, okay, this over that, because it just offers a variety of things. Maybe in the next decade, as things are advancing, that it will go to that. But I mean, then we have some other challenges because I was just watching a snippet of Elon Musk talking to Joe Rogan. I think it was Joe Rogan talking about AI, and he's like, the whole plot to Terminator was amazing because they created this artificial intelligence to protect against security threats, cybersecurity threats. And then it went out, and what it did is it found that Skynet is the security threat. And so the order that we gave it was to destroy itself. So it was protecting itself by eliminating the humans. So, so talk about science fiction coming into reality. It's for those of us that have been around long enough to actually was excited when all these new Terminator movies have come out. It's like, life imitating art. It's not the other way around anymore. I don't I don't know.
Jeez.
Let's see if we get there.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Terminal and Orwell coming to fruition.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're at the crossroads. So, but anyway, but as far as lead generation, I think we've said this. I like to be redundant on this. Is that use AI to create a lead magnet, create a free report, create something that someone's willing to trade their email contact for. Because the key here is to grow your database. Use AI to build out an email sequence that you could stay up to date with it. But prior to doing that, it's there used to be that saying that we agreed with that you have to have a contact relationship manager, CRM. It's much more advanced than that now. You've got to have a digital marketing platform. It just so happens that
Mhm.
that's going to have a CRM database built into it. You and I, we promote go high level. We find that that is the most robust. I mean, Salesforce, they're doing their things, and there's a lot of different things out there, but you need more than just a CRM. You need to have a landing page. You need to have a way to collect this information, the email addresses. You need to have things that trigger the email campaigns, because it's not just finding. It's been a long time since what we used to call the pie in the sky, where you just dial that person and they're just waiting for you to pick up the phone and you're like, oh yes, I do want to sell a house, or yes, I do want to get a mortgage, and then you make that. But most people, you've got to nurture on them before you can convert them. So I think there are
For
some
sure.
prerequisites that people really need to understand. AI is not the thing that you need to be focused on right now if, in fact, you don't have an infrastructure in place to use AI. Now, granted, you get an email, you want to learn how to respond to an email. Okay, you could use it for that. You want to write a love note to your spouse. Okay, you could use it for that. But as far as using it for business, if you're going to use it for a tool, there are some prerequisites that you've got to do before you create to use that tool. And the one is just making sure that you have a landing page and an autoresponder and an email follow up, so you can actually
Yeah.
trigger things.
Some way to capture an email, bare minimum, and some way to send out emails, bare minimum, right?
Wait, speaking of which, prior to and this, we're going to go back several years on this before you and I jumped into, it's an evolution of where we've come. I remember when you and I were just sitting there talking about it and just strategizing about step one, and I think
Hmm.
everybody needs to go through that. But I believe at one time you were using just a standalone lead capture page. God, was it? What weren't you? It was lead something. It was all it did was just build landing pages. It was a landing page builder.
Um, man, I had, gosh, what was one of the first things that I had?
I'm gonna I'm gonna Google
It,
it. I'm just do landing pages because I know it's on there. It was
I think I remember, I know what you're talking about, and it was like a total workhorse. It was like the ugliest looking thing, but it converted so
yeah,
well. And there was something about, um, there was something about the, like the not fancy shiny bit of it that, like, I don't know if it built trust or maybe it didn't feel like super expensive. You ever go to like a car mechanic or whatever, and it's all like shiny and clean and bright, and you're
yeah.
like, that place is probably really
They're gonna
expensive,
rip me
right?
off. Yeah,
I think I think there's a certain element to that landing form that's like, oh, whoever's using this is probably fairly affordable. I might want to give them a go.
lead
Um,
pages. Didn't you use lead pages?
uh, I tried lead pages, but there was something else. I keep wanting to say jot form, but it was not jot form. Um, Lead pages was something I tried back in the day. Contigo type form. This is gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna have to
Well,
ask
while you're
someone.
looking for that, this reminds me of a master class that I just listened to with Dan Kennedy, and that was talking about, everybody's so concerned about the cost of lead, they're not looking at the ROI to it. For example, um, the great thing about building out this system and offering the 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 free report to get them in their database and then just doing a nurturing sequence. One of the things that I feel that I'm going to be diving back into is direct mail, because I think a lot of people aren't doing it. It's
Hmm.
still effective, but is the cost of acquisition. If you do it right, you're only paying for that cost of acquisition once. So if you're a real estate agent, I was just talking to a colleague of mine who's over a lead generation source, and the way that they do that is in order to generate a lead and refer it to somebody, it's like 40%. It's a 40% cost, but
Hmm.
these are clients that are already teed up. It's like go
Right.
find them a house, go sell their house, and the whole back end's already done too. They're already pre if they're a buyer, they're already pre-qualified. If they're a seller, they've all the back end title, escrow, home warranty, mortgage. It's already dialed in. It's part of the deal. You don't get to use your person. It's the person who comes in, and in order to do
Yeah.
that, it's a 40% cost. Agent keeps 60. The other party. It's almost similar to relocation. But when I was talking to him, I said, agents will, because we were talking about how agents, they complain about the cost of that, the 40%. Now, number one is that 40% is only paid if it closes. If it doesn't close, it doesn't charge you anything. Whereas if you're generating your own marketing, you're spending money on Facebook ads and Google retargeting
Right.
campaigns and having this, there's a hard cost to that you have to pay whether you get something or not. So, but one of the things I said to him, I said, look, there's really no cost of acquisition. Number one, they're getting a transaction that, yeah, if it closes, they're going to be giving up 40% of the gross, but a lot of people get paid off of that. They
Right.
keep 60%, but yet everything downstream on that, there's no cost of acquisition. So if they're working their database correctly and they're staying top of mind and they continue to get value and they're getting these repeat referral consumers, the lifetime value of that deal is probably tens of thousands of dollars, and
Oh yeah.
there was zero cost of acquisition. They just had to give up a portion of the split, right? And I don't know why more people just don't jump onto that.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing that I've learned with realtors is there's always going to be somebody to complain about something, and so there's two sides to each
Yeah,
thing. One person absolutely loves Zillow. They built their whole thing on their whole business on it, and the other person, then there's another person that thinks they're a total scam and they just ripped them off for 12 grand and they didn't close a single deal through it.
yeah,
So there's always going to be somebody to complain about something, but I totally agree. And I've seen, it seems like there has been a common trend close to that 40% mark in those split commission deals. um where I mean, it started off maybe like 25%, and then 27, then 29, then 30, 32. Last I saw, a lot of them were like 35, 37.
yeah.
um but to your point, like, okay, so you're giving up half your commissions on that first transaction.
First one.
First transaction. If you do your job right, you're going to get maybe two or three more at bats with those like just a normal person. If you're
Yeah,
in the business for an extended period of time, not not to let alone any referrals that you might get from them, any potential, so I totally agree. And I had a lot of people that I worked with that they're like, hey, my acquisition costs on stuff is so much, like, why don't I just like do more of this? I was like, don't turn off that. Those are free deals,
yeah.
right?
Well,
Like, yes,
yeah.
you're making more here, but that's free money. Like, like you still have to. I was like, now the one thing where I will say this is, like, to those people, like, if those deals are taking up so much of your time and you could close twice as many and have a lower acquisition cost, then definitely then appreciate and value your time. But if you don't have that channel, like that's an awesome channel for a lot of people.
Well, let's look at
So
this. So I want to talk about the whole Zillow thing, but I want to hit this point on here is let's say that you're spending $1,000 a month on internet leads. Like these aren't
mhm,
pre-qualified leads. $1,000 a month, hard cost. You're paying to get
yeah,
those internet leads, and you're not the only one getting those. There's other people who are getting those. There's competition to it. In three, let's say 6 months, that's 6 grand hard money that you're paying for, whether you close it or not, depending on
right,
the area that you live in. And um, whereas if there is no, you're just coming to it, people they balk at the percentage rate, but yet these are not just leads that are just coming off cold. They filled out a form and you just get copied to it. These are leads that are like
right,
referrals. They're being vetted. They've talked to somebody. They've already been pre-qualified. At that point, when it comes to you, it's yours to lose. And there's no
right,
competition. They go to you first. Now you have you have amount of time that you have to get back to people. And if you don't, it gets assigned to somebody else. But it's a one-time
right.
deal. It's yours to lose. So, I think that needs to be part of somebody's business model. But talking about Zillow, I just read an article and it took this, there's right now in the court system, there is the structure of the way that commissions are being paid. Right now, the the listing the listing agent has an agreement with a seller for X amount of percentage of a transaction to be sold. And through the
Mhm,
MLS, that agent, that brokerage will offer a buyer's agent commission on behalf of the seller, right? So the buyer's not really paying it, the seller's really not paying it. The seller is paying a commission to the listing agent. The listings agent saying, hey, through this multiple listing service, if somebody brings a buyer that ends up buying on it, I'm going to allocate or provide X percentage to the buyer, right? So there's a
mhm,
whole legal thing on that, again, which is interesting because when I got into the business, we just got through this legal thing that created the whole buyer's agency model that had representation for the seller and the buyer. Well, this new thing is if in fact that depends on how this legal process prevails, is that the buyer will have to pay their own buyer's commission. It's not coming out as a percentage from the seller anymore. So the interesting thing that I read on this, and I haven't looked at it from this point of view, what is that going to do to the lead generation model? Because a lot of people that I've found in my experience that are getting these internet-based leads, they're saying, hey, why don't you work with me? There's no commission, it's free. They're just saying that they don't go through the process of how it works. They're just saying that there's no cost for representation. I wonder
right.
what that's going to do to those models if in fact it prevails.
And the whole industry market as a whole,
And the whole
like
industry market as a whole.
you're now you're asking like a buyer to put a down payment, closing cost, and commission.
Yeah. So why wouldn't the buyer just want to work directly with the listing agent, just like it was before I got into the business? Before I got into the business, um, the agents only represented the seller.
Right,
So it didn't matter how many agents were involved, they always represented the seller. It wasn't until the buyer's agency came out that they represented the two different uh, parties. But if there's now it's much like, I guess, the legal space. If you're going to get sued and they have an attorney, you have to go and get your own attorney and pay for your own
right,
attorney. I guess that's kind of how I'm looking at it. But the whole model of the online lead generation is all about getting in between. Look, the consumer wants information on the property and they want to talk to the person who has the most knowledge about the property, which would be the listing agent. Technology has allowed it so you can embed other agents in the middle of that conversation so that they can actually capture this buyer business on the premise that there's no hard cost for them to work with an agent.
right.
Now, if it's like, hey, if I'm going to work with you, the fee I charge for my buyer representation is this. So it's going to affect things. It's going to affect things.
I don't
And
think
we'll,
I'm not up to speed on that, on that stuff. I'll have to dig into it more, but that seems quite disruptive to the status quo, for sure.
yeah, yeah. A lot of things going on, man. But the one thing that will always remain consistent is that, in my opinion, and I think in your opinion, that the most important activity an agent does, and a loan officer does, a salesperson does, is focus on lead generation. Nothing matters downstream until you have that lead. Doesn't matter you don't have to spend all these hours practicing these magical phrases that you think are going to convert these leads into appointments until you actually have the lead. So I think people need to spend more time on focusing how they're going to generate more leads and increase their database, and less on everything else, because that's just busy work. You don't need to know how to fill out a contract until you have a lead that turned into an appointment, that turned into a listing, or a buyer that turns into a purchase. Figure it all out. I think a lot of people get real worried on busy work.
100%, man. Gotta, break down one bottleneck at a time.
One bottleneck at a time.
Too many people get stuck trying to make sure everything is perfect before taking any money making activities. And things don't work out well long term with
Yeah,
that.
things don't work out well. Okay, so with that, we are at time. So, Luke, why don't you stay on afterwards? But for those of you that came on live and that are watching the record, thank you. Be sure to tune into us next week as we talk more about everything real estate.
Rock and roll.